Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am Mike Barner. He is Kirien Sprecher, and we come to you every Wednesday to give you the information that you need to win your fantasy basketball leagues. Kirien, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Let's get into it.
All right, we got some news and notes here, and we got to start out with some bad news. Trey Murphy III is out for the season with a shoulder injury for the Pelicans. Yet another crushing blow for an injury-filled season for the Pelicans. This was a breakout campaign for Murphy. He averaged 21.2 points, just over 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 3 3-pointers. So now we're left to pick up the pieces here in the Pelicans and see if we can find some value down the stretch. Maybe we see a little bit of Bruce Brown, but there's some concerns there if the Pelicans shut down their veterans. We could see a lot more of Jordan Hawkins, but he's shooting 37.1% from the field. Doesn't provide much in the way of rebounds and assists. Kirien, is there anybody you're excited about here on the Pelicans right now?
This is a tough situation for the Pelicans. First of all, I just want to apologize. I clicked the wrong video for the intro, so that it kind of messed up the feng shui starting off. A gloomy Wednesday out here in Wisconsin. Sorry about that, but in a gloomy situation in New Orleans as well. I think a couple weeks ago we were talking about guys that were candidates to be rested or which teams were going to be tanking here, and I singled out Murphy as a guy that wasn't going to be shut down because he was really close to the games played threshold to be eligible for their, awards and stuff this offseason. And he's not, career high season for him. Obviously injuries to Brandon Ingram before he was traded, and DeJounte Murray and Zion missed a lot of time. So there's been a lot of opportunity for Murphy, but he's been one of the, breakout players this season. I felt like he was at least a candidate for most improved, probably not the favorite, but he deserved to be eligible for these awards. That's not going to happen. You look at the trio of guys out for the season right now for the Pelicans: Herb Jones, DeJounte Murray, Trey Murphy. What could have been for this season? Obviously Zion missed a lot of weeks too. I think Jordan Hawkins is probably like your best bet here. Super high upside, but also very, very low floor, super risky option. But if you need a dart throw at the end of the season, I think Jordan Hawkins is your guy.
Yeah, I think there's no one here I'm rushing out to add over the likes of some other guys that we're going to talk about later. So if you're in a deep league and you need points, that's one thing that Hawkins can get you, but just be mindful. He shoots for a terrible, terrible percentage. All right. More bad injury news. Domantas Sabonis is going to miss at least 10 days for the Kings with an ankle injury. He had just missed 6 games recently with another injury. So this is not good timing for fantasy basketball managers. When he was out before, Jonas Valanciunas averaged 12 points, 12.2 rebounds, and 3.8 assists over those 6 games. Big boost for Valanciunas here, right, Kirien?
Yeah, absolutely. He was like very fantasy relevant, obviously not like super major production. But if you have Valanciunas, like he should probably be played while Sabonis is out. The Kings did go 3-6 without Sabonis during his recent absence. So maybe they try to switch things up. And then you look at like Trey Lyles or Jake LaRavia or maybe even Isaac Jones as like super deep league guys that maybe get some more playing time. But the Kings are slipping and they're barely holding on to a play-in tournament spot, so they need to come back. 10 days is kind of like a random timeline, right? Like that's like a weekend at plus, and then 10 days can easily turn into 2 weeks. Sabonis might be worth a drop. I don't know how, like, depending on when your league ends, right? If it goes through the end of the regular season, you still have 4 weeks left. You can probably hold him on, but if your season ends, at the start of April, he's definitely a drop. A lot of my leagues end before April starts. What about you, Mike? What do you think about that?
Yeah. If you're in the playoffs right now, and I would assume Sabonis is going to miss 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And
even if he comes back at the end of that second week, you're going to get 1 or 2 games of 70% Sabonis.
Correct, and the chance for re-aggravating one of his 2 recent injuries here is also a concern. So I don't mind dropping him. If for some reason Valanciunas is available in your league, I would definitely add him. There might be some matchups where Trey Lyles plays more, like you said, just because he can stretch the floor and at least play the perimeter a little bit. But I think the biggest winners are the trio of DeRozan, Levine, and Malik Monk, simply because there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunities. And we saw when Sabonis was out before, DeRozan was racking up rebounds and assists. It was something that I was loving to bet the over on a nightly basis. So I think those three guys are going to be, if you have them on your roster, that's the one silver lining of the Sabonis injury, is that those three guys are primed. Like you said, the Kings are fighting for a playoff spot, so those guys are going to play a lot. DeRozan very rarely misses games. Monk was hurt, but he's back now, so I think those three guys are going to have great production.
So what you're saying is chase your fantasy losses by betting the overs on DeRozan's rebounds and assist props.
That's right. That's how you got to diversify your portfolio. That's how we're going to do it. All right. Now, yesterday's games, the Celtics played the Nets, and both Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum did not play. The Celtics still won. And the good news is that Kristaps Porzingis played his second straight game. He had 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks over 29 minutes. Expect to see a lot of this from the Celtics down the stretch. They are virtually locked into the second seed. So this is going to be pretty frustrating if you own these top guys on the Celtics, right, Kirien?
Yep, you absolutely nailed it. They're, just over 10 games, 13, 14 games left maybe for some teams. Boston is 6.5 back of the first seed and 6 games up on the 3 seed. So barring a complete collapse and a major run by the Knicks or Bucks for that matter, they're the 2 seed. I don't think they're going to completely rest everybody every week, but I would assume, they do this periodic strategic resting of a couple guys every now and then. I don't want to get too much into what happened during that game because a little prelude to the what was that stat line of the week. But I will just say the Nets, we had Doug on last week. The Nets continue to be spunky and fight no matter where they are in the standings. And that's encouraging to see when we look around the league and we see Toronto's and the Utahs of the world right now.
Or the Charlotte Hornets, who rested Miles Bridges yesterday against the Hawks. That was actually his first missed game since January 24th. LaMelo Ball also didn't play. That was not his first missed game in well over a month. LaMelo Ball has missed a lot of time recently, but Bridges is not. He's been playing really well over the last 26 games. He'd averaged 23.8 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and 2.5 3-pointers. So that was one of those veterans on a tanking team that we were worried about, but it has not been an issue for him. I think that LaMelo Ball and Mark Williams are much bigger risks down the stretch than Miles Bridges. What about you, Kirien?
Yeah, Charlotte really hasn't entered that tanking season yet. Like I said, at least not like Utah, Toronto, or Philly has. But given the recent fines, I'd be surprised if a ton of resting goes on with those guys. I do think they're going to miss a couple games, right? You look at the rest of their season schedule, the Hornets, that is, starting Thursday, Charlotte plays 14 games in 24 days. That's a lot. They have 3 back-to-backs during that set. I would expect LaMelo and Mark Williams, at least probably Miles too, to miss at least 3 of those games, if not more. So I don't think we're looking at a total they're going to be shut down for the final weeks of the season, but their fantasy value has to take a hit if they're only playing in 75% of their games every week for the next 4 weeks.
If you set the line at 9.5 games played out of those 14, I would take the under for LaMelo Ball. I would take the under for Mark Williams, and I would probably take the over for Bridges. What about you?
I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. Now we move on to not a tanking team, but a team that's going to sit just about everybody tonight. The Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be playing the Philadelphia 76ers, who are in full tank mode. So the Thunder have already ruled out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Lou Dort, while Isaiah Hartenstein and Cason Wallace are both listed as questionable. This is not part of a back-to-back set for the Thunder. So this is simply they're playing a bad team and using it as an opportunity to rest people. This is a great streaming spot for Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe. We saw a similar strategy deployed by the Thunder earlier this month against the Trailblazers. And in that game, Wiggins had 30 points in 32 minutes. So if you're in a daily league and streaming, those are our 2 guys for tonight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge Aaron Wiggins fan. I'm just looking up his contract right now. He's locked in he has an $8 million team option for the 2028-2029 season. Like this dude, if he was a free agent this offseason, he would be getting a huge deal and he would probably be going to and being a starter and playing 35 plus minutes and being, a top 2 or 3 option on offense. Like this guy has proven a lot. He's earned minutes and usage even when SGA and Jaylen Williams and Chet and everyone is healthy. Aaron Wiggins has been fantastic. This is like, look, you said they're playing a bad team. It's not a back-to-back. The Thunder are 12 and a half games up with 14 left to play. They really own, like similar to Boston, they really are just going to try to keep these guys fresh, periodically resting them, trying out different rotations. The only real injury in OKC right now, I think, is Jaylen Williams. And from what I've read, from what I've seen reported, there's no real concern about the postseason, but they're probably obviously going to be really cautious here and then maybe get him in a couple games in the final weeks just to make sure his legs are under him before the postseason starts. But yeah, like this is terrible because you look at like the tanking teams and you're like, well, we could have projected this, but like Boston and the Thunder, like these are really good teams. Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, we drafted these guys in the 3rd, 4th round. SGA, we drafted them top 5. And we're just not getting the full production that we can in the most important weeks of the season. It kind of sucks.
It's almost gotten to the point where you have to draft guys from the middle of the pack. The teams that are going to be fighting for that 4th through 6th seed, or teams that are fighting for positioning in the play-in tournament. You want to avoid teams like the very bottom. And then while there's superstars on the team on the very top, then once you get to the fantasy playoffs, they could get you to the fantasy playoffs, but then you almost have to pivot your strategy because guys like Donovan Mitchell and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Tatum and all of them are going to get rest days as they prepare for the playoffs. So you got to find that sweet middle ground.
And that's totally fair. And I agree with you. But then you look at like the Nuggets, they're the 3 seed, and Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic were just rested on Monday. Like I have Jokic in a points league. This is the first week of the playoffs. First week, he's ruled out. Luckily, my opponent had Tatum. So, this is the playoffs. We want these guys playing. Let those guys decide it. But, obviously it's silly season, and we'll get to a lot of names that are going to produce here towards the end of the season and in the fantasy playoffs.
Another star who is not playing Wednesday is Ja Morant. He's out against the Trailblazers with a hamstring injury. That is going to be his 3rd straight missed game. Ja Morant has not played more than 6 consecutive games this season. He's great when he plays, but it's difficult to rely on him. The takeaway here, Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane has been awesome. He scored 44 points against the Kings on Monday with Ja Morant out. I don't have any faith in Morant down the stretch, but I have a lot of faith in Desmond Bane. How about you, Kirien?
Yeah, that's exactly what I have written down here. The only other note that I had added was he's played in 43 of 69 games so far. So it's just been play a couple games, miss a couple games, play a couple games, miss a couple games. That 6 consecutive game streak has me really worried about the playoffs. I like the Grizzlies. I like their depth. I like the way they're run. But if Ja is missing a game or 2 each series, I don't think they can make it out of the second round. But that stat kind of shocked me when I was looking that up. I thought maybe, he had a good stretch here and there, but it's really just been stop and go all season for him.
We're going to finish up this segment with the Bulls Minute. Josh Giddey could return Wednesday against the Suns or Thursday against the Kings from his ankle injury. He has missed 3 straight games. I don't think he plays in both games of this back-to-back set, so expect him to sit out at least one. But a big takeaway here, Trey Jones, over the last 7 games since becoming a starter, has averaged 15.3 points, 4.7 rebounds, 6.9 assists, 1.3 steals, and a 3-pointer. He is available in 71% of Yahoo leagues. Whether Giddey plays or not, we need to add Trey Jones. What do you think, Kirien?
Yeah, I mean, with Lonzo out, and Giddey out, there's been a lot of playing time to go around. I think if Giddey comes back, Jones' value takes a significant hit. But I do still think he'll be in the rotation and be playing. We also don't really know how much Giddey's going to be playing here. I think just in honor of the Bulls Minute, are they making a push for the 8th seed? We're tied for the 9th, 10th, or the 10th seed right now. But the Bulls are making a push just as we knew they would. They love being in this play-in tournament, and it's the only thing that makes them happy. I think Giddey's, when he comes back, he'll have like his usual role right away. I don't think this was like, like, oh, he's going to come back and only play 18, 20 minutes. Like, I think he'll come back and he'll be a lead dog right away.
Well, Trey Jones and Giddey, so over those 7 games that Trey Jones started, Giddey played 3 of them. So he started alongside Giddey. They've been starting Kevin Huerter with Giddey out, so he'll go back to the bench. But the biggest takeaway here, Jerry Reinsdorf has a home play-in ticket gate within reach. The Bulls are currently the 9th seed. They own the tiebreaker over the Heat. The bottom has fallen out in Miami. They stink. They've lost 8 games in a row. I saw a stat. It's the first time they've ever lost 8 games in a row with Eric Spoelstra as their head coach. Jerry Reinsdorf is preparing to hang another banner. If the Bulls get the home play-in ticket gate, this is best. Everybody keeps their jobs. No raises because he can't pay anybody. But everybody keeps their job. Jerry Reinsdorf is licking his chops about this potential 9th seed.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. Now, we're going to talk about some young players who could help you win your fantasy basketball leagues down the stretch. But before we do that, a word from our good friends at Rebet. March Madness is here. And if you're looking for a way to get in the game, it's time to check out Rebet, the ultimate social sportsbook and casino platform. With over 100 leads on the sportsbook and 25 plus 24/7 live dealer casino games, we are striving to give users an experience they haven't had elsewhere. All March long, Rebet is rolling out daily promos, making the ultimate month of exciting offers for their fans. Right now, for a limited time, Rebet is matching your first purchase up to $100 in Rebet cash when you use promo code RotoWire. Download Rebet today on the App Store or Google Play, enter code RotoWire, and start playing with your promo funds. It's time to play, predict, and experience the madness only on Rebet. Thank you to our good friends at Rebet for sponsoring the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. All right, now it is time. We are on the stretch run here. You're either in the playoffs in your fantasy basketball league, you're in a Roto league, and we've got about 3+ weeks left. Now is the time. Which young players are going to help us bring home some titles? Kirien, you start us off with one first.
All right, so the parameters, the requirements, were a little vague here, so I'm probably taking the easy road out here. I'm going with Zaccharie Risacher of the Atlanta Hawks, rookie. 15% rostered in ESPN leagues, 20% rostered in Yahoo leagues. Available. The production hasn't really been there, but he's picked it up a lot recently since January 30th. Rookies tend to hit a wall. The 2 rookies that I'm going to mention, Risacher and Sarr, have actually gotten better as the season goes along, and I don't expect that to change over the last couple weeks of the season. Since January 30th, Risacher has appeared in 22 straight games, averaging 14 points, 4 boards, 1.5 assists, 1.5 stocks, shooting 52% from the field and 45% from deep. That's really impressive for a rookie. Obviously he's playing with Trey Young. He gets a lot of easy looks, and that helps the field goal percentage, but his 3-point shot has been much improved. He's looking like the number 1 overall pick should. He's a cheap dart throw that could easily pay dividends during your fantasy playoffs, right? If you're dealing with the absences to Tatum, to Brown, to blah, blah, down the list. Risacher is a guy that can come in and give you stellar production. But there is like the downside that he has a low floor. He's going to need, I think he'll have a couple big scoring nights, and I think the defensive production may tick up a little bit as, in the next couple of weeks. But I feel like this is the perfect high risk, high reward play. You're in the playoffs, right? You want to take a shot at a guy like Risacher. You don't want to just play it safe.
So I'm going to go with Stephon Castle, who is not available in at least half of leagues anymore, but is worth mentioning and at least checking to see if he's available in your league. The Spurs have played 3 games since De'Aaron Fox was ruled out for the remainder of the season. Castle played at least 28 minutes in all 3 of those games. He averaged 22 points, 4 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 2 3-pointers. Now, if we go back a little further, when Fox was still playing, over his last 11 games, Castle's averaged 20.7 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.2 assists, 1.1 steals, and 1.7 3-pointers. He is doing it all. He is going to play a ton down the stretch. The Spurs defense stinks. There's going to be a lot of high-scoring games. There's going to be a lot of minutes for Stephon Castle. If you were lucky enough to pick him up when Fox initially got hurt, I think you're going to see some big rewards down the stretch. If for some reason he's still available in your league, double check, add him right away.
I couldn't agree more. The eye test with me for Castle is what does it. He just makes everything look so easy. Like he's got the decel step down. He's got the jump shot down. Like everything he does looks way too easy for being a rookie. And I think the sky's the limit, especially with Wemby and Fox out. I already kind of alluded to it. My other pick is Alex Sarr going 1-2 in the draft. This doesn't seem like, the most risky option. But Sarr's defensive production has kept him relevant in most leagues this season, but he's still under-rostered in my opinion. Over the last 2 weeks, Sarr is a top 50 player in 8 cat leagues. Over his last 7 games, Sarr is averaging 18 points, 7 boards, 3 dimes, and 2 blocks. The defensive production is there, and that's what's, kept him relevant in fantasy leagues. He's 35% rostered in ESPN, 60% rostered in Yahoo. But I do think we're going to see a little bit of an uptick in offensive production. I see a lot of questions in the chat about Tristan Vukovic. I think if you're in a deeper league, there could be value here, but Sarr's not going to get rested down the stretch. They're going to let him play, let him make a push for maybe, finishing top 3 in rookie of the year or something. I think similar to Risacher, Sarr is a high risk, or not a high risk, but a high reward option during your fantasy playoffs if you're dealing with injury absences to star players.
I apologize. I think I cut out there for a little bit. I think Jerry Reinsdorf reached out to my internet provider and didn't like what I was talking about.
I just thought you were questioning my takes. I was like, oh no, I must be saying something
No,
wrong.
I think Reinsdorf shut me down. He didn't like that. He's talking about getting that home ticket gate. I do really like Sarr too. I think he has a higher floor than Risacher,
Yes.
which is nice. I definitely like that call there with Alex Sarr. As long as my internet stays healthy here, let's keep going. I'm going to talk about another guy in the Wizards, Justin Champagnie. And he had a 3-game stretch as a starter. He averaged 12.7 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 3-pointers. And he played at least 31 minutes in all 3 of these games. I was really, really, really excited about him. And then the Wizards turned into the Wizards. And he got benched in Monday's loss to the Trailblazers. He only played 19 minutes. He finished with 5 points, 5 rebounds, a steal, and a 3-pointer. I don't think this is going to be a smooth ride with him. When the Wizards play bad teams, he might come off the bench. When they play good teams, I think he'll start. The Wizards play 4 games in each of the final 3 weeks of the season. So I think there'll be enough opportunities there where he is worth rostering in most leagues.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think the Wizards are weird because they have like these veterans that like Chris Middleton's still playing, Marcus Smart's still playing. Don't expect that to continue, but I also didn't expect them to be playing that much at this point in the season. So I think Champagnie is still a fair option. My last guy, Brandon Williams. Over the last 2 weeks, Williams is a top 60 player in 8 cat leagues. He's appeared in 6 of the last 7 games. He's made 2 starts for the Mavericks during that stretch. He's averaging 19 points, 5 assists, 4 boards, 2 steals, shooting 57% from the field, 33% from 3. So that there could be some improvement there. And 91% from the free throw line. I don't need to explain the entire injury situation in Dallas. I think we're all privy to that. But Kyrie and Dante Exum were recently ruled out for the entire campaign. Williams has been on the injury report recently, but like someone's got to play. I think they'll keep throwing Williams out there as long as he can. I was actually in attendance for his first game of the season. He was playing in Milwaukee, and I went to Fiserv. And he's got some juice, undrafted out of Arizona 3 or 4 years ago now. He averaged 13 points per game in 24 games for Portland in 2021. Like this dude's got some juice. The Dallas desperately needs some offensive spark. I'm rolling with Brandon Williams down the stretch run, rostered in 13% of ESPN leagues, 22% of Yahoo leagues. I think this guy's going to be playing. And he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot, and he's going to provide a lot of offensive stats.
Yeah, I love that call. You would think he'd be rostered in more leagues based on the production he's been putting up. I think part of that is because he has been on the injury report. there's been a lot of he's questionable. He ends up playing, but that is a little bit of maybe that's kept his rostership down. And if you can add him, I really like that call. I would definitely add him. And I will finish up in honor of our conversation with Doug Norrie last week of the Locked On Nets podcast. I will finish up with Keon Johnson. Now, Cam Thomas, since we last spoke to Doug, has been ruled out for the remainder of the season with a hamstring injury. The last 3 games with him out, Johnson averaged 18.7 points, 5.7 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1.3 steals, and 4 3-pointers. Now, what you don't like, he's shooting 37.9% from the field this season. So that's bad. That's that Jordan Hawkins level bad of efficiency. However, he does have higher scoring upside. The Nets play 4 games in 2 of the final 3 weeks of the season. I don't think he's a rest candidate. We talked about that with Doug. I think he's going to play a lot. If you can deal with the percentage hit, he's more valuable in points leagues than roto leagues, but I really like Keon Johnson down the stretch.
My only negative about Keon is that they still no one is really playing like 35 minutes every game. So like he's playing a lot, but everyone is playing like not everyone, but like the main guys are playing like close to 30. He's top 30 minutes only once or twice in March, but he's playing like 28, 29 minutes. So it's kind of nitpicky. Like he's right on that threshold, but it's one of those things where like, an extra 4 or 5 minutes, he can get a couple extra assists sort of thing. But I think Keon is probably like, this has been the ongoing question all season. Like who do you want to roster in Brooklyn? I think Keon would be my guy for the final weeks for sure.
Yeah, last night was really weird. He played almost the whole first quarter. Then he came back in the second quarter. He was in for like a second. He fouled somebody.
Yeah.
And they immediately took him out. And he didn't play again in the second quarter. But then he played most of the third quarter. He played, it was like the final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. So it was really weird. He basically didn't play in the second quarter, which was odd.
Yeah. I just think it's one of those things where, they want to give Maxwell Lewis minutes. Like they want to give these guys, like everybody's going to get some playing time. So like, I think Keon is a solid play. I just don't think he has as high of a ceiling as some of these guys, because he's not going to, if this game goes into overtime or whatever, he's not going to play 43 minutes and get, those juicy stat lines that, some other players can get.
That's right. All right. So now we've talked about some of our favorite guys that we think can help us, young players down the stretch. And we got some time here before we get to everyone's favorite segment. This will give you some time to get all your friends and family in the room, Uncle Bob and Aunt Janet. You maybe call up your neighbor who works from home and never comes out of the house to have him socialize. Come on over for the What Was That Stat Lines of the Week. But before we do that, Kirien, let's answer a few questions from the chat.
All right. Aaron Van Buren, he's got a bye this week. Friday's podcast, they'll do a waiver wire show for next week if you want to tune into that, Aaron. I know you've been a loyal listener to the show, so thank you for always popping in the chat, and congrats on your bye. Chris Chungus says, hey guys, worried about Keyshawn George's minutes in the future with the tanking shenanigans. I got a bye this week, so probably going to just monitor. Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to do. Like I just said, I think Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart are going to be ahead of Keyshawn George on the tanking situation. Would you agree?
Yeah, I perfectly like the idea Chris mentioned, just dropping him and streaming the roster spot.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can make multiple moves a week, I would definitely do that for a lot of these low-end guys like we talked about, George here, Champagnie, Keon Johnson, Risacher. I would definitely, rather than locking one of them into my roster, if I have the ability to make daily moves, I would be streaming that spot instead.
For sure. Cyberlou chimes in with a terrible. Appreciate it.
Nice to see Charles listening to the show.
That's Charles's burner account.
Yep.
Don says Vucevic or Jared Butler. This is tough. Obviously, they play different positions, so if the position doesn't really matter, I'm probably going with Vuk here. That's tough. I don't really like what I've seen from Jared Butler, but someone has to play point guard in Philly. I don't think Tyrese Maxey's coming back anytime soon. I think I'm probably just going to go Jared Butler here because I think he's more consistent. Vuk got playing time last night, but that was just because Richaun Holmes was a coach's decision. So like maybe Holmes plays the next game and Vuk doesn't. I think Butler's just a safer option here. What about you?
I would go Butler, but Don, this is a 10-team league. We've got to find somebody better than these two in a 10-team league. Unless you're just talking simply streaming them for a game, which is fine. But in a 10-team league, Don, we got to find somebody better. So let's maybe hunt that waiver wire a little bit more and see what else we can find.
For sure. Ooh, I like this one. Sarr Thompson or Miles McBride.
Oh, yeah.
These are two of like my favorite players in the league to watch. So I feel like I'm biased both ways.
McBride for me, and it's hand down McBride.
Yeah. I think you looking at Thompson's minutes, hasn't played more than 21 minutes since March 5th. So I think McBride has got to be the option here. Obviously, like McBride's going to hurt you in the shooting column sometimes because he takes not super efficient shots. But when that 3-point shot's dropping, he can provide a huge spark offensively, and the steals are just always there. He's also like a huge Thibs guy. He can play 30-plus minutes even when they're fully healthy. I think riding McBride until Brunson comes back is definitely the move. Another loyal listener, Christian Rogers, he said, who's a better start today for my fantasy playoffs, Van Vliet or Carrington, Jabari Smith, or Khalil Ware? So just for today, you're asking? Let me look.
I'd go Van Vliet over Carrington. That'd be one that I would feel much better about right from the jump.
Yes. Yep.
I'd probably go Smith over Ware too, because I don't know. I can't trust Ware right now. I love Ware. I have him on a couple teams, but I don't know if he's starting or coming off the bench or playing 30 minutes or 19. I think Smith at least is a little bit more reliable, especially with Thompson still out.
Yeah, Bud Carrington scored in double figures in 2 of the last 6 games. The assist numbers are there. I was kind of hesitant just because Washington is playing Utah, so I was like, maybe things get real weird in Utah. But yeah, I think ride with the Rockets here. The Magic, without Jalen Suggs, they haven't really been like a dominant team. So I think riding the Rockets here to handle the Magic is the smart move. All right. P-Dub says, good morning, guys. 10-team, 9-cat. Is AD an ad? I am not adding Anthony Davis.
He's golfing. He's busy. He's out golfing. Did you see that video of him golfing? Yeah, he was out golfing yesterday.
Oh, wow. I gotta find that. I think P-Dub is asking because Davis recently just went to the G League, so that some people are kind of speculating that means he's going to play. He practiced 5-on-5. Look, even if the Mavericks just mortgaged their entire future for Anthony Davis. Having him come back and play in 4 or 5 games is the most idiotic thing that I could possibly imagine, except for maybe trading Luka Doncic away. So, if following their train of thought and their rationale, maybe AD comes back. I am not adding AD. Even if he does come back, he's probably not going to play in every game in a week. That hurts us, the players that play in weekly leagues. What are your thoughts on this? Would you want AD? Let's say your playoffs or your championship is until the last week of the season, and Anthony Davis guarantees he's going to play 2 of the 3 games that week. Would you want Anthony Davis, or would you want Alex Sarr for that week that has 4 games?
I mean, if you're guaranteeing me he's going to play, sure, but there's no guarantee.
2 games. Would you rather have 2 games of Anthony Davis in a fantasy championship or 4 games of Alex Sarr?
2 games of Anthony Davis,
because
he could give you 50 points and 25 rebounds in 2 games.
Even if he's only going to play 28, 29 minutes.
Well, that's the thing. You don't know how much he's actually going to play. Yeah. To me, the moral of the story here is I don't want any part of Anthony Davis under the current circumstances. Now, if you're telling me the Mavericks are tied with the Suns going into the final week of the season and they are determined to get the 10th seed, and Davis is going to play 30-plus minutes in 3 games, then I want him on my team. But that you need a lot of things to go right for that scenario to unfold. So I wouldn't be adding him, no.
I totally agree. We got just real quick, I'm gonna do Kool-Aid guy. He says Kamara, Keegan, or Jared Butler. Who would you drop between these 3? Kamara, I don't want to.
He's battling an injury right now, I believe. So
he's questionable. I think Kamara's going to come back. He missed 1 game and now he's questionable again. I want to keep Kamara. I would probably say Jared Butler here because Keegan Murray could get some more rebounding opportunities without Sabonis. What about you, Mike?
Same. Yeah, I agree there.
All right, cool. And then there's just a couple of questions about Jordan Poole and a follow-up about Bud Carrington. So let's just hit that. Are you dropping Jordan Poole right now? He wound up on the injury report. He's listed as doubtful. A right elbow injury, a contusion. So that doesn't seem great.
10-team league, I'm dropping him for sure here. Michael says
Okay.
10-team. So I would definitely drop him. And there's also another, I'll just hit this quick since we're talking about guys to drop. I would also drop Jakob Poeltl. Paul asked about Jakob Poeltl. I would drop him and stream. He's missing a ton of games. When he does play, he's playing limited minutes. So Jordan Poole, drop. Jakob Poeltl, drop for me.
For sure. And then we just got a follow-up from Christian here about Bud Carrington. He says he might be starting today. Poole's not going to play. Middleton's out. Marcus Smart's out. Brogdon remains out. I think that's fair. I just think that you're now saying Bud Carrington has the same role that Fred VanVleet has, right? And so I think Carrington's a riskier option, but maybe there's a little higher upside. But also, like, who knows what happens in that Utah Washington game? Like, I just want to stay. I don't want any part of that. Like, I don't want to have to watch that game.
That's right.
That's my expert advice. Sorry, Christian.
Well, thank you everyone for the questions. We appreciate you being so involved in the chat. And now it's time for everyone's favorite segment of the week, the What Was That Stat Lines of the Week. Kirien, you are up first.
All right, yeah, like we started off the show talking about Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown being sidelined. Jaylen Brown, they're Boston's resting guys. Jaylen Brown left the game early with back spasm, then missed another game. So maybe that is a real injury, but I think if the playoffs started, like, he would be back. Either way, Boston continues to rest guys, and we're probably going to see some surprising performances out of Boston moving forward. In recent seasons, it's been Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser, right? This year, Baylor Shireman, 7 for 8 from the field, 6 for 7 from deep, 20 points in only 16 minutes. The Nets, they played it close, but Shireman caught fire in the second half. He was talking some mad smack. It just the sheer confidence you need to have in yourself to never play in an NBA game and then finally get your moment and to go 6 for 7 from deep, like, that just has to be exhilarating. Baylor Shireman, what was that? That was pretty fun to watch.
I was watching that game because I was on the Keon Johnson over points prop last night, so I was glued to that game. And man, as soon as the ball hit his hands, it went up. There was no hesitation. He had such a quick release from the corner there. They were down for a good portion of that game, and he really gave them the energy and the scoring that they needed to pull out the win. That is a great, what was that stat line of the week? Mine, we got to go back to March 17th. Quentin Grimes against the Rockets had 46 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, a block. He had 8 3-pointers. He took 27 shots over 43 minutes. What was that? That was against the Rockets, who are one of the best defensive teams in the league. Over his last 9 games, Quentin Grimes has averaged 28.6 points, 5.6 rebounds, 4.6 assists, 2.1 steals, 3.4 3-pointers. And oh yeah, he shot almost 54% from the field. Now Embiid's out, Paul George is out, Pinky P, Tyrese Maxey's probably not too far behind him. Imagine if the Mavericks, fighting for the 10th seed in the Western Conference, imagine if they had a guy like Quentin Grimes on their roster. Oh, wait, they did. And they traded him to the 76ers for Caleb Martin. Quentin Grimes is on fire. 46 points in a game against the Houston Rockets. What was that? That was fantasy gold from Quentin Grimes.
Last 30 days, Quentin Grimes is the 28th best player in 8 category leagues. Last 14 days, he's the 18th best player in 8 category leagues. He is surrounded by Austin Reeves, Derek White, and Trey Young and Dyson Daniels. Like, this stretch run for Quentin Grimes has been absolutely fantastic. If Philly shuts him down, we just need to boycott the 76ers next year because they've ruined everything good with this season. Jared McCain, bright spot at the beginning, but everything in Philly has gone wrong except for Quentin Grimes. What a performance, and happy for the guy. I believe he also played at Houston, right, in college?
You got me on that one.
Okay, so I'm like 99% sure he played on like the Final Four team, that the Houston team that went there. So playing the Rockets back in Houston, there's that little feel good story. And maybe I'm totally wrong here, and people can roast me in the chat, but I'm pretty sure that was a little reunion homecoming for Quentin Grimes too.
Man, the Mavericks just can't do anything right. They trade Quentin Grimes, and he turns into one of the best players in the league down the stretch. It's just one error after another. Well, with that, that is the end of today's RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching the show live here on YouTube. Don't forget to go to rotowire.com for all the information that you need to win your leagues down the stretch. And until Kirien and I talk to you again next Wednesday, may your fantasy basketball team stay healthy, and may you get one step closer to bringing home that championship.
I'm glad we made it through the entire episode, even though I jinxed us with clicking the wrong intro video. Everybody have a good week. Good luck in your fantasy playoffs.